Hello friends, how are you? Welcome to the Japan Study Center. Today we are going to see the chapter of geography and what is our topic today? A dynamic surface of the earth. There is a most important chapter. There is a most important topic arrive here, a concept of isostasis. There is a most important isostasis here. The term of isostasis is derived from to isotosis, a word, a Greek language meaning to state or beginning of balance. You already know and must be has seen that is a mountain have a many peak and the relatively greater heights. And similarly, the plateau and the plain have a flat surface and they have a moderate and lower height respectively. And the contrast is the oceans and the bed there is a trenches has a greater depth. There is a great difference of the height among these is a features, and you also known as that the earth is a rotating while the keeping the perfect balance among its various features. And thus our earth is a considered to be a isostatic equilibriums. There is a most important here. But here also important here example. The example is the most important. Suppose you are holding one stick each your both hand vertically with the varying of the height, say 5 and other 15, and you are moving in the particular direction. Do you have any difficult maintenance of balance in the congruence with your body as well as to stick together? Definitely, the smaller sticks will be easy to the make a balance than to longer one. It is just because of their center of gravity. The center of gravity will a smaller sticks will be narrowed to your holding hand and compressions to be longer stick. In the same way, a smaller surface features like a plane and a more stable than the a tall mountain. First topic here arrives there isostatic balance means a view of the air. There is a most important here. Early geologists is a consider the density of different column, a plan, plateau, mountain, etc. to be that same. Another propose their idea of informal density with a varying of thickness. We know that the upper crust of the earth is made up to the lighter materials. There is the most important here. We know that is the upper crust of the earth is the made of the lighter material. In this is a layer of silica and the aluminum are found to the abundance and it is known as the cell. There is already have discussed. It is a less denser than to the lower one. The early assumed to that is a silicaceous crust is a floating over to the Sima means silica and magnesium and the lower dense layer. The crustal layer is the informal is a term of density with a varying of length of columns. Therefore, those columns are projecting down into the atmosphere depend upon to the proportion of their columns, and it is due to this is the reason that the root has a developed or the Sima has been to displaced from below. To prove this a concept, I early took example of wooden block of various size and immersed them into the water. There is a figure is also important for see the next. All the block are the same density and they get immersed to a different in a proportion to their size. In the same way of higher a feature with a great higher seam on the surface of the earth have a deeper roots and where is short in length as a shorter roots is bent there. It is the concept of root which is standing there higher evolutions. He is of the opinion that there is a landmass and the floating like a boat is the substratum in the magnetical astrosphere. According to this concept, the roots bend the Mount Everest is would be a 8848x and the 8. There is a mean to the 70,784. There is 70,784 meters below their sea level. On this base, yearly has been the utilized and that is the root is not possible to be at such a great depth because the root is the materials will be melt due to higher temperature found at that depth. Here show the most important diagram here illustrations of the concept of yearly isostasis. There is the most important here the water level and the water level wooden to the piece of uniform density. And the second here a condition of the isostasis based on the elements and the as hormone. There is the most important the density is here 2.7 and the root also and Siming's density is present and potential platform also present on plant mountains plateaus and sea level there sea is the density as a 3.0. There is a most important diagram show in there The next here is the isostatic balance. There is the most important here, isostatic balance view of the pattern. The pattern is considered is a land block of various heights to be different in terms of their density. The taller is the land mass has a lesser density and the smaller height of feature to be a denser. In other words, there is an inverse of the relationship between to the height and density. It is that there is a higher is a column, density will be a lesser, and if there is a shorter column, the density is will be higher. Assumes there this is to be true to be accepted that all the block of different height get a compensated at a content or depth into the subterms, and in this is a well is a line is a beginning or democrated, and democrated is above which is there is a equal pressure with the varying two heights, and thus the denounced that root concept of early and the accepted the concept of a level of compensations, and for providing his concept he took a number of metals bars of varying to density with the same weight and put them is into the mercury. There is a show in this figure the next concept. In this way to the form a line by the all those is a var which is gradually to be their level of is a compensations. There is the most important here. Here show the most important diagram experiment of the concept of the parda of the isostasis. Here is the most important here isostasis is the experiment here. The first here is the lines of the compensations here and mercuries, and there is a black shaded is a mercuries here present, and there is a lead is a very less than, and the iron is the more than to the leads, and there is antinomian there is iron is a more than. There a zinc is the less than for the antinomian. There is the most important so of here of pattern and isostasis experiment. There is the most concept here, and the illustration of the lithosphere or the black began to the conversations here are interior planes, plateaus, coastal plain, and the sphere. There is the lips of the conversation here. There is the most important diagram show on there. Here shows the difference in the view of the RS and path. There is the most important difference here. There is exam view, and the difference between to the view of the Aries and the paths can be more clear be presented in the tabular form. There is the most important. The first here the view of the air there, and second view of the partha. There is informal density of crystals is the materials. There is view of airless, and second here view of the path. The various density of crystal is a material here, and the first here is the varying the depth up to which is the root of penetrate. There is the most important, and second the pada here is the informal depth up to which is the crystals and materials reaches, and the next here is the deeper root below to the mountain and a smaller depth of plan. And the second here no root of formation but the level of the composition. There is the most important here. The second, there is the most important here, a global isostatic adjustment. There is the most important C part here, a global isostatic adjustment. It is a quite appearance that there is a no complete isostatic balance over to the globes. And the earth is unstable. Genetics and force often disturbs the crystal balance. The regular earthquake and the volcanic eruptions along the particle belt do not significant any balance, but a short of adjustment is needed continually. There is the most important here global static adjustment. There is a reason being a regular earthquake and volcanic expression along to the particle belt do not significant any balance, but is a short adjustment in the needed to continuously. Genetic force are there is a tectonics effect and the case of the imbalance on their surface, but is a nature is allowed try to the make on the isostatic adjustment with itself. Exogenetic force are tried to eliminate the difference on the surface of the earth, and it is this process they are peelings off and transported down for a flank and place their depositing them. In the process of isostatic balance is the maintaining by the unrest of floways of the material by subsidence at the place of deposition and a filament at the peeling of place if there is a proportions to be a denudation. There is the most important and denudation figure here showed here. This diagram is a mechanism of isostatic adjustment. There is the most important. Show this is diagram is a demonstration of mountain range. The mountain range is a showing the slope is a rises here and transportation is a slanting here and deposition also here and subsidence is a backward of the earth and the sigma and substrams and the flow waves they are most important. They show a mechanism of isostatic adjustment in this diagram. Continentals of draft. There is the most important here. A continental drafts according to the Wegener, there is entire the landmarks of the globes was together about 280 million years ago. There is the most important here. It is a term to the Pangea, a supercontinent, and there is the water bodies surrounding the Pangea is known as the Panthalassa. Panthalassa is the most important from there 280 to 150 million years ago. The Pangea was broken to the longitudinals into the northern and southern parts as known as the Laurasia is a Nagaland. Nagaland is there as a Gondwaland. There is the most important especially here. The both of them drifted away to the between to the Sallow Sea as immersed by the feelings up their water from Panthasalas. It is known as the Thessia Sea. The later on there is a Laurasias and the Gondwana land is a briefs as a funny drafted to form to the present day of distribution of land and water on the earth. They are shown in this figure. Here the show the more important is globes. There is the upper is the carboniferous is the most important here. There is the longitudinal 180 to the 180 there side and there is the most important show here. The next diagram here is the cosines. There is the most important here. Longitudinal same, but there is the cosines is the difference here. The next there is the alter is the Pleistocene is the most important here. Show as a diagram. Evidence of draft is a beggar is give to a number of evidence in a support of the unification of the landmarks in the geologic past. They are such which is cannot be neglected even today. There is the most important first dear law is the evidence of draft or beginner is a jigsaw feat. Jigsaw weight is the most important law here and stand coastal of South America is identical to the western coastal of Africa, which feet to be contained is a depth in the ocean. To be contained is extend a coastal area and continental slabs has been to the modified by the oceans and the wave through the relations. So in this figure, the most important here Greenland, Europe, and Northern America. And the next here, Africa and South America. There is a Wenger is a map of continental draft of fitting of their continent as a bordering to the Antarctica oceans. The next is a geologically similarity. There is the most important the mountain system of southern Antarctica is the coastal of South America and Africa, showing the similarity of the extensions in a both continent. And the next here is the coal and vegetation evidence. That is the most important here. The distribution of the coal and vegetation over South America, Africa, India, and Australia prove that they are together is a geologically past. Their classical is a glaciers is a deposit during to the Californias is a period over this is a landmarks is. They remember their each other which is the tell the story of togetherness and today and there lies a different is a climatical zone. Apart from above evidence put forward by the beginner and the other evidence is known as the letter and also there is which support the idea of the continental draft. There is the most important. The next here evidence from the paleomagnetism. There is the most important evidence from the paleomagnetism. And paleomagnetism is their study of the direction of pole through the edges. And the magnetically is a substituted is a minerals and the like hematomatis and the parotatis magnetic etc. They get realized in the magnetic pole of the earth and recorded in the solidification of the magma during that time. And it is found that a periodic change have occurred and the pole have wandered which is not possible for the entire earth. Hence, it is the twist and the turn of the landlock and the not from the entire earth which has again explained that is the continent have shifted their positions. The next area floor is spreading. There is the most important sea floor or spreading theory. The along the mid Antarctic ridges is a magma come out at the sea bed and the get solidified. A new zone is formed and this is a process is a continuing since millions of years. It is the leading of the deviations as a continental block. Another size of the Antarctic Ocean is increasing, which is a term as a sea floor spreading. It is a classical example of their shifting of continents. The explanation of the continent as a drop through sea floor as spreading and the study of the paleomagnetism is known as the commonly is a plate tectonics. There is tectonics is the most important area of paleomagnetics also called there is a plate tectonic. There is the most important and here show this figure. In this figure is the most important the valley mountain air and continental crust and rise of magma and the upright. There is a second diagram also important here the B. The B diagram is a show here is most important and C is also there is a continental shift and the mid oceans rift and the ocean base and oceanic their crust and mantle. There is the most important diagram here. And this diagram is the stage is the continental rupture and the opening up to the new basin. There is the most important diagram shown in this picture. Most important topic arrive here a plate tectonic. There is a plate tectonic here. The uppermost outer solid and reddish layer of the earth is called crust. I have already learned to the crust. There is a uppermost outer solid and great layer of the earth is called crust. It is a thickness as various is a considerable. It is as little as a 5 kilometer thick and beneath and the oceans at the some places, but under some mountain range it is extend up to a depth of 70 kilometer. The below the crust is the denser rock are found as known as the mantle crust. There is the most important here. Up to there is a depth of 70 kilometer. Below there is a crust is a dense rock are found is known as the mantle crust. This upper part of mantle up to the average depth is 100 kilometer from a surface is a solid. There is the most important here. The below the crust dense rock are found known as the mantle crust. And this upper part of mantle up to the average depth of 100 km from to the surface is a solid. And this solid mantle is a plus upper crust from to the comparatively is reduced block terminate to the lithosphere. And the mantle is a partially is a molten is a between 100 to 250 km depth. And this is the zone is a solid to the sphere is known as the more discontinuity as signification of the isomorphosis and the name of the semi-logist who discovered it is all this is a thing you have already read their preview lesson. There is the most important here. The lithosphere is broken into the several block. There is the most important point here. The lithosphere is broken into a several block. This block is known as the plates and which are moving over to the anthroposphere is there is a 7 major plate. Show in this figure. Here show the most important is a sub direction and there are separate side. There is a south and western Indian Ocean, that is Arabian plate, and there is the most of important land here is a separate for the time to time. And there is the most important diagram show in there. In this figure, they show the Eurasian plate, African plate, Indo-Australian plate, is a Pacific plate, and North America plate, South America plate, and the Antarctic plate. There is the most important here. Apart from this major plate, is a minor plate are about 20 in number. A few important among them here. The next is the Arabian plate, is the Philistine plate and Cusco plate and Nazca plate and the Caribbean plate and Socrates plate, etc. And the major and minor plate is a continuity. There is a whole surface of the earth. The place is tectonic is the method or way understanding their land is a water distribution of the earth. Tectonics is a shorter of the movement of the plate through their movement. Internal forces are explained which are responsible for their distribution of the earth as a crust and formation of mountain chain and distributions of earthquake and volcanism. There is the most important here. But also important here a mechanism of plate movement. Here the mechanism of plate movement is the most important. The author is Holmes and the British geologist is 1928 to 1929 proposed that a conventional occurrence exit of underneath of the lithosphere. The center of the conventional is a current is not exactly known, but it is a belief that it has a average depth of the about 100 to the 250 kilometer below the surface. There is a most important here 100 to 250 kilometer below the surface. The inception of the current is initiated by the heat generation due to the radioactive minerals. Due to integrations and disintegration of the atomic minerals, heat is produced and another the melting of surrounding rock. In this way, the current is started to operating, and this current are the classified into the rising and falling with the range and the convergence activity are respectively. There is a most important here. With the rising conventionally is a current is a transport of hot and viscous is a matter takes a place upwardly. After reaching about 100 kilometers and below the surface that the current get a diverged as a leading to the spirit into the upper part. The molten is a materials, a penetrate is into the spirit and thus the creation of the new surface and the draft of their metamorphosis is a plate is a opposition direction. It is happened below to the mid oceanics and rises. On the other hand, two set of the rising thermal is a conventional is a current is a bearing two plate together and it is called convergent is a boundary where to the subdecations take place. The plate of the sphere are constantly in the motion because of conventionally is a current. There is a relative motion depend upon the force operating over them. The plate boundaries are the very important and significant structural feature. There is the most important here. The plate boundaries are very important and significant structural features and boundaries are very distributed and the easy to the identify. They are associated with the newly formed mountain system, oceans, ridges and terrains. And the plate are the moving continually and have a relative direction of movement. The based on the direction of movement, three types of plate boundaries can easily be identified. There is the most important, also important here diagram. In this diagram, the types of plate is the boundaries here show in this distractive boundary, concentric boundary, and distractive boundary. There is the most important here, and the also important is a plate, and plate has a move, transforming fault and the plate. There is a substitute is a plate here, a new plate is a materials, and subjected plate here. There are types of plate of boundaries as shown in this picture. There is the most important, the clear for the mind. The plates is the continuum. There is a exchange. There is a divergent of boundary and convergent boundary and fractures are transformed boundary fault. The conventionally is a current are causing due to the radioactives and this current is a get are diverted on approaching the crust layer. Reversing to the current is a produce a tensions or aid the contact zone of crust leading to the fracture. The magnetic material is penetrate into the forest stage as the get are solidified. This continued process is a push. There is a block is opposite direction and create the new zone. The known as the zone of the construction. At the convergent boundaries, the two adjustment is a plate come to further and further closer to the each other and collides. And when both sides are the continentals is a natures are the mountain format is evident. And then one of the two is a continentals and there is the other is a maritimes. Again a mountain come into the begin along their boundary. In this case a continental plate is overnight there is a maritime and when both plate are there maritimes both of them are breaks and subduct and the penetrate below and the heinous trenches formed. Along this boundary is the earthquake and the volcanic activities are prominent. In all this zone is a situation surface area is reduced and therefore this is known as the zone of destruction. There is the most important here in all these three situations surface is reduced. Therefore this is also known as the zone of destruction. Transform fault is the one when to the adjustment and the plate is a slide past each other. The direction of the movement may be along there is again but They move to the parallel to be each other, and therefore neither there is any construction of fresh area nor in there have any distractions. And it is known as a zone of preservation. That is the most important here. And plate are not a permanent feature, but they are very size and shape. The plates can split or get welded, and with the joining of plate, almost all the tectonic activity occur along their plate boundaries. The barrel to be an advent of the plate tectonics theory, their continental draft theories was and that which was the proposed by the beginners and was scrutinized, and particularly about their force in the fact it is outrightly rejected in spirit of the apparent evidence. But further is the researches about the material of sea floor and the phenomenalism and supporting of the theory, but is the propositions of plate tectonics theory is the 1960th century, and they have solved there is a problem of the mechanism of movement. There is the most important and important also here. The plate tectonics and the earthquake are volcanoes. There is the most important theory here. A plate tectonics was earthquake and volcano. The distribution of the earthquake and volcanoes over to the globes, the show in the figure, they are clear reveal that are strongly associated with the boundaries of the plates. The plates boundaries are the zone where is a very short of the tectonics activity and does take a place. The release of energy created because of the movement of plate is there manifested in this zone in the form of earthquake and volcanic eruptions. Here show the major earthquake and the volcanic belt of the world. There is the most important. The important here dotted shape is a volcanic belt. They show in this diagram, and there is a clear and the white earthquake zone. There is the most important, and lava is a plateaus is their dark zone. And the triangle shape is a volcanic show in this diagram. There is the most important from the major earthquake and volcanic belt on the world.